Well, ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, because it's time for another electrifying episode of Boss Economics World, where we slice through the economic baloney, expose the governmental gaffes, and serve you the piping hot truth about the financial mess we're all swimming in. Today, we're diving headfirst into the European Central Bank's, ECB, latest escapade, because, oh boy, do we have a lot to unpack. From premature victory laps on inflation to a recovery so fragile it could collapse under the weight of a feather, this is a masterclass in how to mismanage an economy into a textbook recession. Grab your popcorn, folks, let's break down the ECB's latest circus act, point by point, and show you why this is all a recipe for disaster. First off, let's talk about the ECB's self-congratulatory fanfare. ECB bigwigs like Francois Villeroy de Galhau are out there popping champagne, declaring, "We have won the battles against inflation." Oh, really, Francois? Inflation in Europe is at 1.9% as of June 2025, and you're forecasting 2% for the year, right on target, huh? Sounds like a job well done, right? Wrong. This is the economic equivalent of declaring victory in a boxing match because you landed one punch while ignoring the haymaker coming your way. Let's not forget, folks, inflation isn't some vanquished dragon, it's a hydra, and the ECB's policies are practically begging for new heads to sprout. Here's the deal, inflation might be under control at 1.9%, but the ECB's obsession with hitting that magical 2% target has blinded them to the bigger picture. The Eurozone economy is teetering on the edge of a cliff, with growth so anemic it makes a snail look like Usain Bolt. According to the latest Eurostat data, Eurozone GDP growth for Q1 2025 was a measly 0.3%, barely recovering from the stagnation of 2024. Meanwhile, industrial production is down 1.2% year-on-year, and consumer confidence is in the gutter, with the European Commission's economic sentiment indicator dropping to 95.8 in May 2025, well below the long-term average of 100. And yet, the ECB is out here acting like they've cracked the code. Please. This isn't victory, it's denial dressed up as a press conference. Now, let's get to the juicy part, the ECB's interest rate cuts. On June 5, 2025, the ECB slashed its deposit rate to 2%, marking the 8th cut in a year and bringing the total reduction to 2 percentage points since June 2024. ECB President Christine Lagarde is out there saying, "We have almost finished the rate reduction cycle this time around." Greece's Yanis Sternaras is echoing, "Easing is nearly done." Oh, fantastic. So, you've cut rates 8 times, and now you're ready to take a breather. Here's a hot tip, ECB, maybe check the pulse of the economy before you start planning your vacation. Let's break this down for the folks at home. Interest rate cuts are supposed to stimulate the economy, right? Lower borrowing costs, encourage investment, boost spending, Economics 101. But here's the problem, these cuts are too little, too late, and totally out of touch with the reality on the ground. According to the ECB's own projections, Eurozone growth is expected to limp along at 0.9% in 2025, barely above recession territory. Unemployment, while stable at 6.4%, masks deep structural issues. Youth unemployment in countries like Spain and Italy is still hovering around 20%, per Eurostat's April 2025 figures. And let's not forget the debt crisis lurking in the shadows. Italy's debt-to-GDP ratio is at 141%, Greece is at 165%, and Germany's fiscal rules are squeezing the life out of any meaningful stimulus. So, what's the ECB's grand plan? Cut rates to 2% and then, pause. Brilliant. Meanwhile, Austria's Robert Holzmann, the lone voice of reason on the governing council, is screaming into the void, pointing out that rate cuts won't spur investment when unpredictability is so high. And boy, is he right. With global trade wars heating up, thanks, Trump, and geopolitical tensions flaring, businesses aren't rushing to invest, they're hoarding cash like it's the apocalypse. According to a recent Deloitte survey, 62% of Eurozone CFOs say they're delaying capital expenditures due to economic uncertainty. But sure, ECB, go ahead and take a timeout. What could possibly go wrong? Speaking of unpredictability, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Donald Trump's trade policies. The ECB's latest quarterly projections included a mild and severe scenario, highlighting the extreme unpredictability of Trump's tariffs. And yet, Villeroy de Galhau is out there saying, "We don't have the effect of increasing inflation in Europe." Oh, bless your heart, Francois. Let's break this down with some cold, hard facts. Trump's tariffs, reintroduced with a vengeance in 2025, are already wreaking havoc on global trade. The US has slapped a 25% tariff on European cars and a 15% tariff on agricultural goods, according to the US Trade Representative's office. The European Commission estimates these tariffs will shave 0.6% off Eurozone GDP by 2026, a conservative estimate, if you ask me. And that's not even counting the ripple effects. German automakers like Volkswagen and BMW are already reporting a 10% drop in U.S. sales in Q1 2025, per the German Association of the Automotive Industry, VDA. Meanwhile, French wine exports to the U.S. are down 18%, according to France's Ministry of Agriculture. But sure, ECB, no inflationary pressure here, right? Here's the kicker, these tariffs don't just hurt growth, they create a stagflationary nightmare. While Villeroy is busy celebrating low inflation, input costs are rising as supply chains get disrupted. The Eurozone's Producer Price Index, PPI, rose by 2.3% year-on-year in April 2025, signaling cost pressures that will inevitably trickle down to consumers. And with the euro weakening, down 5% against the dollar in the past 6 months, per Bloomberg data, import prices are climbing, too. So, while the ECB pats itself on the back for winning the inflation battle, the real war is just beginning. Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. The ECB's policies, or lack thereof, are setting the stage for a full-blown recession, and the signs are everywhere. Let's start with Germany, the Eurozone's economic engine. Industrial production in Germany fell by 2.7% year-on-year in April 2025, marking the steepest decline since the pandemic, according to the status. The ifo Business Climate Index, a key gauge of German business sentiment, dropped to 86.5 in May 2025, its lowest level in over a year. And yet, the ECB thinks a few rate cuts will fix this. Dream on. Then there's Italy, where the government is barely keeping the lights on. Italy's borrowing costs are spiking, with 10-year bond yields hitting 4.2% in June 2025, up from 3.5% a year ago, per Trading Economics. This is what happens when you combine a debt-to-GDP ratio of 141% with a central bank that's too busy celebrating to notice the fire alarm. And don't even get me started on France, where political instability is tanking investor confidence. The CAC 40 index is down 8% year-to-date, and the French government's latest budget deadlock has S&P threatening a downgrade. But wait, there's more. The ECB's projections conveniently ignore the global context. China's economy, a major driver of Eurozone exports, is slowing, with GDP growth projected at 4.6% in 2025, down from 5.2% in 2023, per the IMF. Meanwhile, the US is flirting with its own recession, with the Conference Board's leading economic index declining for 6 consecutive months as of May 2025. And yet, the ECB thinks it can just sit back and let the data guide its decisions. This isn't leadership, it's negligence. Here's the bottom line, folks, the ECB, in cahoots with Eurozone governments, is driving the economy straight into the ditch. Their obsession with hitting arbitrary inflation targets has blinded them to the real issues, stagnant growth, rising debt, and a trade war that's about to blow up in their faces. And let's not forget the role of governments here. Germany's fiscal austerity, Italy's political paralysis, and France's budget woes are all pouring fuel on the fire. The ECB can't fix this alone, but it's not even trying. Instead, it's throwing a victory party while the economy burns. So, what's the solution? First, the ECB needs to wake up and smell the recession. Pause rate cuts. Are you kidding me? They should be doubling down, slashing rates further, and flooding the system with liquidity to jumpstart growth. Second, Eurozone governments need to ditch the austerity playbook and invest in infrastructure, green energy, and digital innovation. According to the European Investment Bank, a €500 billion investment in green infrastructure could boost Eurozone GDP by 2% over the next 5 years. But no, let's just keep arguing about budget deficits instead. And finally, the ECB needs to stop pretending it's immune to global pressures. Trump's tariffs aren't going away, and China's slowdown is real. The Eurozone needs a coordinated response, trade negotiations, targeted subsidies, anything to cushion the blow. But instead, we get complacency, denial, and a whole lot of hot air. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why Boss Economics World exists, to call out the nonsense and hold the powers that be accountable. The ECB's mismanagement, combined with government inaction, is a one-way ticket to Recessionville, and it's ordinary people like you and me who will pay the price. So, get mad, get informed, and let's demand better. Until next time, this is Boss Economics World, where we don't just report the news, we shred it. See you in the comments, and don't forget to smash that like button if you're as fed up as I am.